What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody. I am your host for the evening, your co-host, along with my good buddy, Steve Roland, for the Awakening World, in a very special edition where we are going to answer, or at least explore, a question that we've been asking ourselves for a long time. What do women truly want? And we've got some amazing, very powerful, wonderful women that are friends of ours that we really trust to speak candidly and honestly. So it's going to be a very powerful show. A reminder for all of the people in our Zoom room, let us know where you are geographically. It's really fun to see that. Both of our ladies are coming from the Big Island. Stephen's up in British Columbia. And I see right away, we've got friends from California, also British Columbia, Australia. So let us know. And I also want to welcome all of the people watching on Facebook. We've got over 100 Facebook groups and pages that tune in and watch because of the Sign Network. So a big thanks to John and Summer Raymer for getting us out to that many groups and pages. And if you are interested, you can come on into our Zoom room, and I'm going to post on the Facebook groups our link, and you can come straight into the Zoom room, or you can register, and it's really easy to register. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, and register, and you're going to get the links to all of our shows for the rest of the year. We do 3 shows every week: Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday mornings. Sometimes we do special events as well, special online concerts and such. So register and join us. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, click where it says join the fall season now, and then you'll see all the different things that we've got going on, and lots of amazing shows. That's, of course, tonight, tomorrow night's show, and Sunday's show, and so it continues. So join us. Come be part of the Global Peace Tribe family. We love to start our shows and include music because it's inspiring. And so we have a wonderful house musical artist. Those of you that are regulars know that, of course, I'm talking about Omashar, who brings a lot of love along with his music. Take it away, brother.
Hey, aloha and namaste, everybody, and what a blessing to be here with you all tonight. I have a couple of very simple pared back unplugged songs, and this is one called Precious One, and speaks for itself. precious one, I love you more than I can say. You are the one that's here in my life all the time, shining your light through my day. Only you can take all of my troubles and cares. With your breath, you blow them away like the wind, clearing the storms of the day. This is the dawn of that bright and glorious day, when your love shines right through the heart of our world, melting what stands in the way. Precious one, I love you more than I can say. You are the one that's here in my life all the time, shining your light through my day.
I love that one. That's a new one, and I haven't heard it before, Omashar. It's beautiful.
This whole weekend's going to be new songs.
Oh my God, that's great. It was so romantic. It's like, oh.
It's because, yes, it's because of tonight. It's in honor of love.
Oh, you did a great job. And hey, everybody, a reminder that we can all support Omashar and enjoy his music by going to his page on Bandcamp. Simple. Omashar, his name, OMASHAR.bandcamp.com. And there is the albums and all the good stuff. So let's all support our beloved brother Omashar, and he will be back later on in the show. So we'll look forward to that. Thanks again, Omashar. Well, I get to introduce one of my dear friends who is my colleague. He's the guy looking over my shoulder now, at least in terms of the poster. And I'm talking about Steve Roland. And you've seen him on the show before. He is the creator and founder of RelationFlix, but he's much more than just that. He has quite an incredible background. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Stephen is a very trauma-informed relationship communication and emotional intelligence expert. And he's been supporting people to experience wellness in life, romance, sexuality, and spirituality for over 10 years. And that's about as long as I've known him. And he's always been dedicated to just discovering as much as he can about relationship and how to make relationships great and to work. So much so that he then created RelationFlix, which brings a lot of wonderful teachers, including the women you're going to meet tonight, out to the world. So, Stephen, thank you. I'm excited. And of course, let you all know, we are going to be promoting our new course for men, Relationship Essentials for the Evolving Masculine. We'll talk about that later on tonight. But we thought, let's start by understanding what women truly want. And to introduce the two women that are with us live, I'm going to turn it over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, wow, such a joy to be here with all of you. And yeah, the two ladies I'm about to introduce, I totally adore and think of in extremely high regard. And yeah, I've spoken to both of them in the past week on this exact subject, and we evoked quite a few juicy nuggets, some that were just pierced my heart and soul to hear this feedback that women have about men and like the beautiful longings of their heart. And both of them had beautiful things to share about that were potent and an invitation into a higher way of living in relationships. And so looking forward to getting into that tonight. And so alphabetical, first on deck is Arielle Brown. Her brand is the Intimacy Catalyst, and she also runs a community called the Cosmic Tantra Community, where she hosts these online events called play containers that explore intimacy and sexuality in a profoundly deep way. I appreciate Arielle's fierce commitment to living with squeaky clean integrity inside of herself in her professional world. And yeah, I can't speak highly enough of you, Arielle. So I'll make space for you to say anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, I'm deeply grateful to be here, as just seeing, me being here with Shezza and this meaningful conversation that we're having. I just feel the gift of being trusted to be here and the gift to be able to share and be received. So thank you so much. I'm grateful and thank you. And I look forward to diving into this conversation.
Sweet. And next up on the introduction docket, we have Shezza, who Shezza just radiates this like magical, juicy, spirit connected, sensuality infused, succulent energy into life that she's just like got this like magnetism to her. And like I have friends up here in Canada who all know who she is and are fans and followers of hers just because of how magnetic, inspiring her presence is. And she's written a book called The Sexy New Earth, and like that is, writing a book is no joke. And I know you put your heart and soul into that project, Shezza. So congratulations and kudos to that. So really grateful to have you here and the work that you're up to in the world. Really appreciating you for all of that. So I'm going to make space for you to speak.
Yeah, I'm just grateful to be here with such a powerful tribe of beings, and I'm excited I'm actually at my friend's house, so it's like there's a lot going on back here, but I'm feeling relaxed in my body and I'm excited for this conversation. I feel like the conversation could go so differently than how it went in our interview. It's like everything is changing all the time. So I don't even know what the conversation's going to be, but I know it's going to be good.
All right, well, I'm going to bring the four of us on. And, well, the conversation is about what do women really want? And obviously, I would guess that most of us know what it's like to be happy in relationship, at least for a while. Most of us definitely know what it's like to be unhappy in relationship. There is that part of us. I mean, all four of us are relationship coaches. So between the four of us, we've worked with thousands of couples and seen a lot. But I just want to go personal. What to each of you, as powerful, dynamic, very balanced women, I know you both well, you both lead very balanced lives. What do you really look for in your life as it relates to relationship? I'll call on Arielle first and take it away, and then we'll hear from Shezza.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful time to be having this conversation because I am newly in a partnership where I'm being met in some really beautiful ways, some of which I knew that I desired to be met, and other ways that I didn't even realize were so deeply important to me. And when we're talking about what women want for me in context of partnership, is more than anything, I want to feel a man's reverence of the sacred space of my energy, that there's this intuitive, creative knowing in me. It's the feminine aspect of my expression that is rooted in intuition. It's rooted in subtle energy. It's that silent voice that at the same time is very deeply felt. And I know for me, one of the things that I'm receiving and feels so important is that I want a man to know the importance of that, and to honor creating space for that feminine expression to blossom. I feel like a lot of what I'm experiencing in my conversations with women is this feeling of the need to advocate for the feminine, like that silent voice, and like carve a groove out for it, when in reality, the feminine in itself doesn't want to have to carve space out for it. Like the feminine wants the masculine to create that space for her to open and blossom. So the place where I'll first start is, I feel like what women are really desiring is for women to come and for men to come in with this deep reverence of like the magical essence that women bring simply through being who they are, and to feel like space is being created for it without needing to fight for room for it at the table.
Putting Stephen on because I just saw you having lots of responses there, Stephen.
Yeah. Beautiful share there, Arielle. I really tuned into just the gem of like being in a space of open-hearted, appreciative, like you use the word reverence, I use that word a lot as well, just celebration for the essence of the feminine nature, and not having to carve space for that, and like having space already there existing for that magic to kind of occupy and express. Like what your share reminded me of is kind of like the tantric principle. I remember like many years ago hearing this, that like Shiva, the masculine archetypal principle, is the empty space of the cosmos, and Shakti, she, her, the feminine, is like the light and colors and magic and the burgeoning of the expression of the creativity of the cosmos within that empty space. And yeah, like, so just like kind of distilling that into relationship. Yeah, it's really beautiful when there's like an atmosphere and a container for women to just kind of show up as they are. And there's like this like almost like humble, like thank you, reverence, gratitude for the offering of the magic that really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What it reminded me of, I mean, I really appreciated what I heard was as a self-reflection of, hey, we, the feminine, we bring gifts, we bring, so please revere us and enjoy these gifts that we bring. No, that's what I heard and interpreted. It was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, there's the desire for the space to open, and that there's no rush for the opening, that you actually take delight in the gentle opening and like unraveling of our essence.
Yeah. I see Eleanor Joy wrote, and if there's not a man or partner in my life, I choose to do this for my own divine feminine. So beautifully stated, Eleanor. I'm going to put the spotlight on Shezza for a moment. Shezza, just right off the bat, as you're hearing us talk, what comes up for you? What's most in your beautiful Shezza way?
Yeah, what's coming up for me is I just love the transmission that Arielle brought, and it's really actually very deep in my life right now on multiple levels, workflow and many experiences I've had that I'm seeing the ways that the feminine way is the harder way, because it's not as seen. There's like this other layer, and we're so programmed to be in this masculine flow that even seeing it is complex. And one of the ways that I'm really feeling is this more embodied way. Like, and I sometimes I hate the way words masculine, feminine, because what do they really mean? But this head way, this logical, okay, we're going to sit, even in the spiritual world, we're going to sit up straight, tall, silent, observing. And how the feminine is kind of loud, and there's a wildness to it that isn't linear. It's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily fit in with our paradigms. And, but it is so desperately needed in our society. And so I think that we are all, men and women, are so longing for this other expression. And at the same time, we don't even quite know where it is. Like, how do I even explain what that is in this moment? And, but yeah, that I have this inner knowing, this inner deep yes and no. That's why I feel like the sacred rage conversation is really up right now. And a lot of people are a bit scared of the bitter woman who's just mad and angry at the world. But actually, this sacred rage of the feminine, when it's alchemized, is this deep yes or no about what is in alignment with us. And so it's kind of like a wild animal that says, no, I will not allow these old ways to continue. And it's an inner knowing. And sometimes there's a feeling that we're slightly crazy. So I feel like from the masculine to be able to say, I am really hearing what you are saying. And this desire to go deeper in understanding what women are tapped into that might be different from the sort of mainstream logical linear way.
That was rich. I would love to actually, get Arielle's thoughts about what you just brought up, because, we go through different cultural shifts, and so I'm curious about two aspects. The aspect of the sacred rage. I think that's a really interesting element that I'd love to hear what Arielle has to say. And then a question for both of you. I'll bring Stephen on for this too, but a question for both of you. Of course, we all know that there's a masculine and feminine within all of us. And I guess I just want to clarify that for the purpose of tonight's show, we are talking about those who identify themselves and identify their gender as woman, as female. And certainly we acknowledge and recognize and appreciate and are inclusive of transgender people, and that we all have masculine and feminine within us. So I just wanted to kind of give that little caveat. But I'd love to hear from both Shezza and Arielle, especially where you both are at with that element of the sacred rage, and also the element of claiming the feminine, not always having to be both masculine and feminine. I'm really curious about both of those things.
Yeah. What Shezza was touching into with the sacred rage, I would, along with sacred rage, I would also bring grief into that. I believe that really, regardless of gender, I believe that all of us are carrying an immense amount of unprocessed grief and unprocessed rage, just as a result of the disconnected state of the worlds. Mark Gaffney, who wrote this book called Eros, he's a Kabbalistic tantric practitioner. He describes that we're in a global intimacy disorder. And, when I feel into the rage that I feel in me, and also the grief that I feel in me, I wouldn't even say that, at least for me, it's so much personal and identified with my specific identity, but as a deeply empathic, intuitive woman. I feel very connected to the grief of the collective, the rage of the collective, and because of the nature of the work that I do, there are so many women in the world who don't have access to any of these emotions, or even have the space or the resource to process this. So I think those of us who are kind of devoted to this alchemy path, we can touch in so deeply, that especially when we, and to me, part of the sovereignty path, to me, I would describe sovereignty as learning how to hold ourselves so that I can open to another and receive from another without losing my ability to hold myself. So on my own, like masculine and feminine integration, sovereignty path, I've learned how to hold that grief. I've learned how to hold that rage and to not take it out on people in unconscious and subconscious ways, and to process it myself. And then when I come into relationship, to me, part of the point of relationship is to take down those walls and allow that alchemy. Like a teacher of mine, Nicole Daydon, would say, you can't tickle yourself and you can't take yourself out of control. There are certain things that we actually need connection with another in order to open and facilitate. And my experience, and I imagine other women, is that when we start opening in relationship with a man, not only are we opening those doors of pleasure, those doors of joy and connection, but we're also opening the doors of tapping more into that grief and that rage that many of us have been carrying for so long. And I feel like women want to know that it's welcome. And that doesn't mean that it's giving women a permission slip to take that rage out on men in malicious or unkind ways, but wanting men to have a sense of what it is that we're carrying. And because it's linked with all of the juiciness that men receive through our openness, I feel like we want to know that it all gets to be there. Because if you only want the juice, but you don't want like the bitter or the things that don't taste so good, it's not actually safe for us to open.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that robust share there, Arielle. And that last thing was just kind of like a boom, mic drop moment about how there's like, it's almost like an epidemic of people wanting like the good things, but unable to hold and have some level of poise when it comes to handling difficulty. And like, this is a little bit of a rant that I went on a couple times lately in conversations with people, is like, there's an epidemic that's happening right now, and it's this world is getting too comfortable. Like there's too many conveniences where people are conditioned to like, hey, I want to watch a movie. I can just dial in a website with like low effort. There's mobile apps where we can order food from our phone. These are like I think about like Skip the Dishes or Uber Eats or whatever mobile phone food delivery apps are in your area. If you have them, it's like, this is like an unprecedented level of comfort. Like, imagine explaining food delivery to like our ancestors 100,000 years ago. It's like the hunter-gatherers who had to make everything and bust their asses in their bodies just to survive. It's like, here I can dial like a burger on my phone and have it here in 20 minutes. And it's like, it's unprecedented. Like, we're being conditioned to be comfortable, as comfortable as possible. And like, there's a beauty to that, obviously. And it's conditioning and socializing us to have little effort and investment with really high rewards really quickly. Like, it's so easy to get a quick, like profound dopamine hit with absolutely no effort. And that's a problem. And so when it comes to a moment where like there is anger in a relationship and someone's like bringing the heat and bringing the fire, and like there's bitterness and anger and rage and sadness and grief and like all of these things, like I think without life's conveniences, those are difficult to hold. But when we're being conditioned for extreme comfort and convenience, it's really inconvenient to have to deal with something that uncomfortable. And like the inability to hold those moments is devastating to relationships. And it's, I'm going to read a comment from Eleanor Joy here. Women are scared due to being a target for misguided male aggression, rape, attacks, and more. And to hold a job or fit into family or work, the controls are subtle but very present in culture. So that weaves a little bit into what I'm saying, and it's like this inability to hold and contain energy, whether it's like an emotional charge that I'm feeling because my partner's pissed at me, or an inability to hold energy in the sense that, hey, I have this profound sexual attraction to this other person, and I can't hold that energy in myself. Like it's a containment issue. And I can't hold that energy in myself. So it's like leaking out unconsciously onto this other person, even though they don't consent to that engagement whatsoever. It's not desired, it's not wanted. And there's like this lack of skill present. And yeah, I think that's like one of the big reasons why Scott and I are teaching the program that we are Relationship Essentials for the Evolving Masculine, because learning how to hold an atmosphere where, like I spoke to earlier, hold an atmosphere where all the colors and expression and beauty and magic and intense expressions of energy from women, like learning to hold that well, manage our own discomfort, regulate our nervous system, be able to stay present without reacting and going into attack, dismissiveness, defensiveness, or making it wrong, trying to diminish it, shut it down. It's such important work. And like Arielle, you said it just so perfectly in your last comment there about like how there is this desire for like the beauty, the magic. And when there isn't an ability to hold the difficulty as well, it's like it's all of a sudden it's not a safe atmosphere to be. So I just riffed for a bit there, and I do have a video, Scott, queued up from Erikaa that's kind of on this tip as well, but I want to just make space for Arielle and Shezza if they have any remarks about the riff that I just went on.
Shezza, you're muted.
I thought it was interesting that somebody immediately put in the comments when Arielle came in and said like, oh, it's not just rage, it's grief. And I don't know who put it in the comments, but it's like, this isn't about rage. This is about grief and sadness. And for me, this really brings it exactly back to what my original point was. We are terrified of angry women.
Yeah.
And, we don't want and our anger in general, it's been so we're afraid of anger because there's been such the shadow side of anger. And so we don't want this to be about anger because that's not spiritual. That's not the awakening world that we're talking about. And actually what we really need in this world is our sacred rage. Not just our grief. Yes, our grief is also there, but we need our sacred rage because our sacred rage is that part of us that is deeply tapped into our intuitive no. I am not a yes for what is going on right here. And I feel my experience, I had a very big experience, which I've actually been processing with Scott this last week, where I had a really big no around like a group situation. And I feel like my no was more like, this is your pain. So sorry, this is your pain. And rather than being like, dude, this girl is tapped in. I know that I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to claim it. I was tapped into a certain no about what I was seeing. And I knew that this particular no is not popular. that it is the opposite of what most people are going to say. And it is my no. And wow, when somebody can feel my no and can feel and hold that my intuition is like, run, no. I just find that really sexy, and I feel seen, felt, and heard.
Boom. You know, of course, because I've had the advantage of working with you on this, Shezza, and I'm so proud of you. And I just want to point that out. When someone sets a boundary, or when somebody calls out something that we're all awkward and uncomfortable with, let's not gaslight them. And that's what that was. You know, when we say, "Oh, that's your wounding talking. Oh, that's your mother wound. Oh, that's your addiction." You know, whatever it is, when that happens, and I see it a lot with couples, and it's gaslighting. Now, the flip side of that is, you're right. We are scared shitless of women's rage. And when I say we, I'm talking as a white privileged man. Absolutely, we're scared to death of it, because we're so afraid of being found out for all the ways that we've screwed up. All the ways that we've screwed up. And I can say this as a white man. And I'm talking about my big brotherhood going back centuries. White men have been in control of this planet for a long time, and they have not done a good job. In fact, they've really messed it up. And women are pissed, and wise, enlightened, awake women are angry. So how to convey that anger in a way that is not judgmental, that calls it out as it is, but doesn't create reptile brain reaction, which is then going to go into gaslighting or defending itself. So with that, I'd love to hear, I'm going to bring Arielle and Stephen on. Go to you first though, Arielle. What comes up for you with this direction we've gone in?
Yeah. You know, I really appreciate, so this is to me, the work of cleanliness, like cleanliness and the expression of our truth. And what I mean by cleanliness is doing our internal work to get right with what we're feeling internally, because if there's any shame or self-judgment about what we're feeling, it's going to come out with that transmission of self-judgment, shame, or guilt. And it's like beneath our words, there's the transmission of the energy of how we're relating with what we're saying. And it's similar to desire. A core aspect of the work that I do with clients is about our relationship to desire and how we express what we desire in the world, and the underlying energy about what we feel, about how, like, what we want. Like, for like a great one is, you know, let's say a woman is desiring a monogamous partnership with a man, and they're dating, and she both desires this, and she feels like a discomfort, like a fear of expressing like this desire. It's going to be hard to express that desire from a clear, clean, embodied space that's going to feel good to receive. And likely because we're not fully reconciled with like the cleanness and the truth of our desire, we're going to attract people in who kind of match that lack of clarity. So bringing it to the conversation of anger, it's like when a man that I'm relating with does something that upsets me, when he does that thing, am I able to stay in the present moment and remember that this is a man that I love and that he's human, and then likely he's not doing anything to hurt me? Or when I'm in this experience of feeling like this man has just done something that upset me and I'm angry, Do I pop out of the present moment and go back into a story or a past memory when a man did something similar to what this man did? And when that man did it last time, it meant that this was going to happen, which means I definitely can't trust this person. And I need to go into self-protection because I'm no longer safe. So to me, a lot of this work as women, when we're advocating for ourselves, is looking at where we're still carrying blueprints of, I'm not safe. It's not safe. I'm not going to be heard. It's not safe to trust myself. I'm not going to be received here. Because when we're carrying these beliefs, which are very understandable considering the world that we live in, because likely every woman on this planet has had the experience of feeling like she spoke her truth and then was called crazy. It's our work as women to look at where we're carrying those old memories and those old blueprints into our new interactions with men. Because if we bring that energy, it's going to influence that the man is going to feel it. Even if he doesn't realize what he's feeling, he's going to feel something that's going to trigger something that is probably going to create a snowball. And all of a sudden, how did we even get here? How can we just come back to remembering that, like, I love you. Like, I love you. And like, this is how I want to share how I'm feeling with you ultimately, because I just want more connection with you, as opposed to expressing anger in a way that creates disconnection.
Beautiful. Stephen, I'll turn it over to you for a moment, my friend.
Yeah, I just love that principle of I think you used the word cleanliness, Arielle. Like the word hygiene, like verbal and emotional hygiene's coming up for me. And you know, like I gotta give the tip of the hat to you, Scott, because Arielle's share has me reflecting on just how powerful the emotional literacy component of emotional intelligence work is. Like really just empowering ourselves to have the vocabulary and language to sense make about what's going on inside. You know, it's like if we don't have that the language to use, it's so difficult to create inner coherence and speak from a clean place. And yeah, it's like all of the different kind of nuances of different flavors of emotional energy that are out there, like anger has like rage, or like discontent or agitation, or like feeling disturbed, or like on the more pleasant side of the emotional spectrum, there's like joy and feeling like inspired and elevated and enthusiastic, and just, you know, like having all of those, having the language to talk and make sense, and then be able to deliver that in a more clear way is super potent.
We have some interviews with other wonderful women. Of course, we're going to hear much more from Arielle and Shezza, but I know you've got something queued up. Do you want to introduce what you're about to show?
Yeah, so this is a clip from the interview that we shot with Erikaa Briones, who is a sex educator. She works particularly with managing shame around her sexuality and sexual confidence. So that's the big work that she does. And this particular video is about when, it's kind of actually piggybacking off a subject we were on about 5 minutes ago, and that's like when a person is bringing an uncomfortable or difficult emotion, like the impact that has when it's held well. What does it do for the level of trust in your relationship to know that if you bring your emotions to the table, that they'll be held well? Like, what is that? How does that feel in your body?
Wow, this is so present. Like my heart is beating fast. I believe this conversation about really being met at all our emotions is what builds trust. Can I be able to share my anger, my grief, my sadness, my crazy? Some women, when we're labeled as witches or crazy, we feel like we can't really share our truth. And I have a history of, roommates where I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, or I'm scared to say something because if I am vulnerable, I am going to be not accepted. And so trust is being met with all the uncomfortable emotions. Can I have a difficult conversation about race? Can I have a difficult conversation about sexuality? Some conversations that are ignored and suppressed, that is what creates shame. And if there is shame in the relationship, there's no trust. So that is my mission here, is like what I really do with sexual confidence is we really just heal shame. And when we heal shame, there's just so much more room to play, to connect, to laugh. And that's a big part of my mission, is to have those conversations. And it is my passion to connect. So there's no tension, there's no flinching, there's no trigger, there's just love. And if the relationship is coming from fear, then is that really a relationship built on trust? And if there is love, yeah, you're going to be able to talk about the things that are scary, the things that you've been suppressed, the weird things, the taboo things. That's why we're here. That is why we're here, to exist here on the planet.
Yeah, so just a potent share from Erikaa about just the magic when there is a space to bring the heat or bring the difficulty or the uncomfortable conversations. And I love the piece that you spoke to a moment ago, Arielle, about cleanliness of the language that we use. And also, like, I think there's like this beautiful synergistic dance that's available where, like, when one person takes ownership for the words that they're using, and they can do that with a level of skill and mastery and like inner coherence and clarity. And if the person receiving that can hold a space where, like, even if that's not present, it's like, can I be a translator for what's actually going on? And like, I just bring this back to you, Scott, again, and the work that you do and how impactful it's been for me, working on like really translating, like when someone's really upset or they're bringing a deep, intense, powerful emotion that's uncomfortable to hold, there's an unmet need that's underneath it. And it's like, if someone's like raging and like, you're such a jerk and like name calling and blah, 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 and it's like, okay, like, what's this person really needing? And being able to kind of tune into that and actually speak to the need rather than internalizing the language that they're using, like, that's also a really beautiful piece to bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to weigh in on that for a moment, and then I want to get back to the wonderful women. But obviously, we are afraid of anger. Many of us are afraid of being angry. Many of us are afraid of receiving anger. And I just want to acknowledge what Marshall Rosenberg taught me. Anger is a natural human experience, and it's healthy to share our anger, like Stephen said, as a way of understanding ourselves. I'm angry because these are my needs, these are my values that have not been met. It's not cool to use our anger as a weapon. It's not cool to say, you made me angry, now I get to tell you what an asshole you are. So just whenever we're at it, look at it. Am I wanting to share my anger for the purpose of being understood? Yes, that's cool. Or am I using my anger as a weapon to hurt another person? And that's, again, a razor's edge. I see that Mark Janisovsky wrote about the razor's edge, and that's absolutely true. I'd like to get to another question for both Arielle and Shezza. So I'm going to bring you both on. What are some of the qualities, since this is what women truly want, what are some of the other qualities that you look for with, in your relationships? And it doesn't have to be just romantic relationship. It can be any of your important relationships. But what are some of the other qualities that are just really like super important, super precious to you each?
I think that for me, if I can jump in because it relates to what the last comment you were saying is the comment of curiosity and desire to, so like if somebody's angry, like rather than, you know, it's spiraling into this big negative place, it's like, I really want to hear what you mean or what's underneath that. And so it's this, I feel like important relationships, there's like there's this beautiful groove, there's this dance of ideas and desires, just not to only be the speaker, but to understand the other. And then you really get into this beautiful, like a good volleyball game, you know, like going back and forth. And so if someone's having a strong emotion, it's not just holding space, but actually being really curious. Oh, like, wow, what is that mean, and what do you mean there? And then it just opens up this huge, I'm a sapiosexual, so it also opens up the intellectual ability to have great, long, meaningful conversations about being a human being.
Beautiful. Shezza, let's have a Mrs. Rogers moment, maybe. Would you like to share with people what that wonderful word is that you just shared? Because it may be a new word for some people.
Curiosity?
No. The form of sexual that you are.
Oh, ecosexual. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean ecosexual. I'm also an ecosexual, which is love the earth. A sapiosexual.
A sapiosexual.
Which is someone who gets off on intellectual conversations, and it's definitely one of my big passions. I can have like totally be obsessed with like really yummy, juicy conversations. And I feel like the more that we are like curious about the other person, the juicier the conversation gets.
Beautiful. All right. I want to hear from Arielle some of the things that she really that turn her on and she looks for. And then I know Stephen has another video lined up. Arielle, you're up.
Yeah. Well, first, just wanting to like affirm and nod. Like to me, exquisite curiosity is one of the most like desirable and sexy qualities that I find in a man. Like your ability to let go of the need to control and instead just trust, like through you being like just being curious, and like trust. Like to me, curiosity as opposed to like leading the conversation somewhere shows me that you trust yourself enough to let go of control and let curiosity guide the experience. That is powerful. That's a place for where infinite potential can occur. So I want to bookmark that. And I also just want to speak to what women want from men in a way that doesn't have to do with prospective romantic partnership, because I actually believe there's a lot of healing that wants and needs to happen around men and women having like truly genuinely loving intimacy with each other, where the potential of sex or something more isn't always on the table. You know, on the big island of Hawaii where Shezza and I live, it's like we live in this wild and amazing community of humans, and we're dancing together all the time, and we're singing and we're playing and we're praying, and I've cultivated such beautiful brotherhoods with these men where it's like it's not about sex, it's not about where it's going to go. And some of the things that like I have really noticed that I'm receiving more and more is like again this thing of like reverence from the men in my community. Like as simple as a man in my community who I know and love walking up to me and giving me a freshly opened coconut simply because he appreciates my presence in the space. It's not you're giving me a coconut because maybe if you give me the coconut, we're going to do something later. It's I really feel this emergence of men showing up in these little acts of service that I feel like the feminist movement, or whatever we could call it, where the equality movement between men and women means like, don't be chivalrous for women, like don't serve women, women can do it on their own, like that doesn't bode so well for like authentic connection and chemistry. So I love feeling from men like just their reverence of me and their honoring of me as the woman that I am, and these simple acts of just like giving me a fresh drink because they appreciate me, or just it's the acknowledgement of the goddess. Like if we're going to go into the spiritual terms, it's honor the goddess in women, not because you're trying to get anything from them, but because the goddess needs to be honored in our culture.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. You know, along those lines, I just want to acknowledge Dorina in Ecuador wrote something very powerful, just acknowledging what women around the world might be wanting. Iranian women wanting not to be killed for not wearing the hijab correctly. Women in India not wanting to be raped, abused, and killed in public and stoned. South American women not wanting to be the victims of domestic violence. African women not wanting to be sexually mutilated by their own mothers. Ukrainian women not wanting to be war refugees and homeless. Chinese women not wanting to be silenced and censored. And then she concludes with all women, we want to have the right and freedom to choose about our own bodies. So thank you, Dorina, for helping us to remember some of the extraordinary things that maybe we take for granted that women around the world are still having to struggle with. Wow.
Yeah, I'd love to add something in there as well, Scott, to that. Today in Canada is a day called the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And it's a national holiday that's in acknowledgement to the genocide of Indigenous people that's happened in North America. And it's the short version of it is Orange Shirt Day. And like people around all over Canada wear orange today. And it's just a day to kind of keep that refreshed and alive. And it's like, I'm so grateful for I think it was Dorina, her name, who brought those pieces in, because it's like, wow, like I think a lot of us live quite sheltered lives in North America, and like under this bubble of dropping the P word that makes some people uncomfortable, and it's privilege, you know. And it's like it's a very real thing, you know. We a lot of people resist the idea that they have these privileges because like their lives are really hard. And I think there's all sorts of ways that we've had like the world work against us in some ways, like difficult families, difficult upbringings, like really tragic and horrific events. And so I think none of us have it perfectly. And there's certain situations that are much more difficult than we have, and that are worthy of acknowledging. And you know, privilege, the way kind of privilege works is like, if we don't think that we have it, we probably have it. And I mean, I'm saying that from a white person's perspective. And if we have it, we can't see it. Like if you have privilege, it's so hard to see. And if you're from like an oppressed or marginalized group, like Iranian women, like it's a perfect example. It's like really fresh and alive right now because of the craziness that's going on right there, and the oppression of women that's happening. And it's like, that is so like the lack of the privilege is so present to them. And yeah, I just wanted to name that into the space so that we can hold that with a little bit more care, consideration, and compassion, and include that into Dorina's share.
Mm. Thank you, Stephen. I think it's also right around now is the Day of Atonement for people of the Jewish faith, which is a little bit similar to what you were describing. I believe you have another video lined up of our dear friend Emily.
I do. So I realized we just kind of spoke to like an energetically difficult piece and kind of emotionally heavy piece to hold. So I just want to kind of clear the slate just a pinch and start this moment anew. and kind of bring it back to the conversation about what women want, but also like acknowledging like as a man, holding space for this conversation can be quite difficult. There's a lot of messaging towards men right now that speaks to their inadequacy, and like a lot of the times conversations like this can be heard as like not enough. There's not enough, that you're not doing enough. And I just want to have compassion if that's a difficult thing to hold, because, you know, I think like I know so many men in my life, and I'm sure a lot of you can recognize this too, is that like there's some great men in here who like really step up and show up, and, you know, they work their butts off to provide and feed themselves and create like survivable and comfortable lives for themselves and their families. And, you know, they're really there for people who friends, family members who are having a hard time. And, you know, I just really want to acknowledge all the ways that men have shown up, and particularly I'm imagining a lot of you are well cultivated in the more personal development and spiritual side of things as well, and I just really want to acknowledge you for the beautiful work that you're doing. And if there is a piece around like the not enough messaging, or like a fear of being not enough even internally without that messaging, and there's an inadequacy wound, you know, I just want to validate that as well. And that's a difficult thing to hold. Like like I know personally, like I'm constantly like have this thing running, like it's almost like a perfectionism thing of like, am I doing enough? Am I showing up enough? Am I doing the right thing enough? And I can see like that comes from a fearful place of inadequacy. So I'm going to pass the talking stick to Emily Orum here, and hear what she has to say about this subject.
Within, you know, being emotionally intelligent or aware, how to even I think that's something that needs to be talked about, you know, within men's circles, is like, hey, we have a level of feeling inadequate, you know, within, you know, being emotionally intelligent or aware, how to even show up in relationship, and like, you know, talking about like, how do we manage our inadequacy wound? You know, and how do we then like be in that place of acceptance and love of ourselves, but also be in, I'm learning, I'm growing, and like this is where I'm at within my growth, and it's okay, right? Like it's okay where I am in my growth, and I want to get better, right? I want to show up, I want to improve, I want to keep growing.
Yeah.
It's such a balance, right? That area of like improving ourselves, but also accepting ourselves and being careful, you know, in that area.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like the balance between like
I love that. Yeah. And there it is. It's like women here, bringing it back to Arielle and Shezza. To what degree do you want to be a source of inspiration and I'm going to say right now, the men in your life? To what degree do you want to be a source of inspiration? And to what degree do you want them to already have it together? Because there is that kind of that piece. I know that I can certainly relate to the part of me that wants to have it all together, and the part of me that wants my beloved to be a source of inspiration. So I'd love to hear Arielle and Shezza what you have to say about that.
Well, I'll just flow in as one of the things I was talking about in our video when we talked was this like the gift of a lot of women right now. And you know, this is a big stereotype, but a lot of the gift is this emotional intelligence, this intuitive way of seeing things. And one of the gifts that I often find with a lot of men, at least the ones that I feel resonant with, is this sort of like, let's pop out of like the storyline and be in the joy and the humor and the lightheartedness. And so there's this sort of like what I see in a lot of men that can be both, sometimes is bypassing, and sometimes is just super inspirational and awesome, is like pulling us out of the drama and into just the light-hearted joy of the moment. And then the women is more like this intuitive, I'm seeing, I'm feeling, and I've got all this like downpouring of ideas and wisdom, and I want to talk about it, and it can sometimes feel a little heavy and dense. So to me, it's bringing these two places together of like, let's go deep. And sometimes that gets really dense and heavy. And without bypassing, let's open to more like the joy and humor and lightheartedness. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I see these two polarities playing with each other.
Beautifully stated. Thank you. Thank you. Arielle?
Yeah, it was interesting feeling into your question and like how I translate that question. I received that question of to what degree do I want a man to have done his work to be able to meet me? And to what degree am I willing to be a teacher and be that space holder? And to me, we're always teachers for each other. We're always space holders for each other. And again, I'll reflect just in this current partnership I'm in. Now that I am experiencing being in a relationship with someone where there's such a clear choosing. There's not a waffling. There's not a, well, like, I like it here when it's uncomfortable, but if it's too much, I might pull away. I might become avoidant. Navigating that dance as a woman who can err towards anxious attachment, and how much emotional, like a teacher of mine, Kasia Urbaniak, would say, how much emotional labor invisible emotional labor that I would do for the men that I was exploring intimacy with, meaning when a man's not willing to feel his emotions, the role that I would come in and play to kind of hold both of our emotions. And like, I kind of normalized it because I didn't have really a reference point for anything outside of it. And now that I'm in an experience with a person who's not running, he doesn't need to be right. He brings a softness and a humility and a receptivity and actually significantly more feminine qualities than I think men are told is desirable in a partner. And don't get me wrong, he's very grounded in himself and in his work, but there's this receptivity that, again, my mind wouldn't have thought like, oh, I want that, but receiving it and the level of like, oh God, I don't need to constantly worry that this man is going to freak the F out. It changes the game in terms of what is available. Where I am available to teach, I'm available to teach in terms of how a man can meet me sexually. I'm available to really guide a man in terms of how to know my body. If he's a willing and generous participant, I'm a yes to that.
Beautiful. I was just, it was actually Shezza I was talking to a few days ago, and I said, make sure if you're dating a guy that he's trainable. Very important that they're trainable. And like you said, I think either you or Shezza said, that they don't think that they know everything, because how can they possibly? So beautiful. I want to read a couple of comments that are coming in from our chat box and then turn it over to Stephen. Susan Woolridge did acknowledge, yes, we are in the Jewish New Year. Days of awe, 10 days to examine our heart and soul, leading up to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Karen Eisenberg writes, beautiful, Shezza, bringing in the humor and joy when we get deep to balance the two polarities. Eleanor Joy says so much wisdom from these two wonderful, insightful women. I'll bring the other insightful woman on camera at the same time. And apparently we've got a whole Victoria, British Columbia thing going on with all the people on the show here in Victoria, BC, including Stephen. And then finally, Mark Danislavsky earlier, again, just when we were kind of talking about anger and rage and being present to it, brought up some really good points and some concerns and questions. I don't want to go back there, but I want to just acknowledge, thank you, Mark. I appreciated what you wrote. So I'm going to turn it over to my collaborator today, Stephen.
Yeah, so I'm just about to play a video from Jessica Osterday here. Actually, I'm just going to jump right into it, and then we'll do a little bit of a round table. Are you open to sharing more nuance, just like about like how it felt in your body to like that heart opening process that comes from him showing up that way? Can you elaborate just a little bit more on that inner process for you?
That's a harder question for me to answer, I feel like, because it's cumulative. It's not a one-time thing. And I think that, I've been in a lot of relationships where someone shows up with a one-time thing and it's not trustworthy.
So consistency matters.
Consistency is the most important thing. Like, I know who he is, even when he's being an ass. And we all are, including this one right here. Like, we all have our moments, right? But like consistency in the way that we show up around these sticky parts of our personality, for me, means a lot. It's a hard thing to describe, but I think that just like that heart-opening feeling, the expansion, the willingness to move towards rather than away from, the willingness to share with him parts of myself that I don't share with anybody else, because to me, that's the love language that's earned. And the trust that I can be known there, even if he can't know me immediately, that I know that we can take the time for him to know and for me to understand him in that space. And there's also a willingness to have fun, I think that comes through as well, because I can't trust someone who's not willing to meet me in my dark places, and I won't have as much fun with them. I won't go as deep. So I'm like, you didn't earn this. Like, who are you? How do I know that if I drop into the vulnerability of joy and love and beauty and sex and passion and all of those things, if you can't hold the container when shit is real, how do I know that you're not going to cause stuff when things are good and that just like goes down? Because that's been my experience of the immature masculine, is that it's about service to their ego. And so like they have to redirect to the most dramatic point because they don't know how to actually hold space and enjoy. And so I think that that's the difference in container that we're talking about here. It's like you build the container through the hard times so that you can really drop into the good times and know that you can meet each other regardless. That's what trust is for me. Trust isn't built in like, trust is not built in the shallows.
Yeah, so great share from Jessica Osterday, who is a trauma healing counselor and therapist, and she was riffing on the experience of consistency of showing up from the man that she's dating, and I just thought that was a super poignant share, and would love to bring it to Arielle and Shezza to see if they have anything to riff on from that.
I think, yeah, what she was saying about the more trust, the more sexy, the more fun, and there is sometimes this bypassing in perhaps all of us, but I I can think that maybe perhaps more men. We just want to get straight to the fun and the joy and the sex and the yum, and just realizing that there's this whole other layer that we're dealing in. And oh my gosh, like, can we not put meet genitals? Like, if a man I mean, Arielle said it something similar earlier, and I just want to say it again, is if you can't hold the volcano that might erupt from this woman, then don't engage with her sexually, because there's going to be stuff that might come out for both of you. So let's just say, if we're going to engage sexually, are we going to be able to also drop in and have space for what might emerge in our attachment issues, in our our traumas, and can we ride that train together into the happiness, rather than the happiness, the joy, the fun is where we're already at. Hopefully we are already at there, but the train might go into other places. So can we be with the full spectrum? And the deeper we can go into that, the more there is that ability to open and be in the sexy, yummy, connected joy of being in a relationship.
Beautifully stated, Shezza. You know, there's a great line from Marilyn Monroe, which is, if you're not willing to put up with the worst of me, you sure as hell are not going to get the best of me. And that's kind of what I'm hearing and what you're saying here. You know, it's like, hey, you know, it's not just the yummy, juicy, but it's embracing and accepting the entire package. Arielle?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was really feeling Jessica very deeply, and she was bringing me, like, it's interesting. I'm finding myself in this spot of what arose of, you know, in my younger years of dating men in my 20s, there was something in me being a woman that I really didn't trust my ability to take care of myself or create for myself. And it was very linked with my idea of being a woman. And, you know, having jobs did not work for me. I needed to be an entrepreneur. So a lot of my dating, my more distorted dating in my 20s, there was a very deep thing in me that was wanting to be saved by a man, saved financially, saved emotionally, because on some level I had the conditioning that because I was a woman, I couldn't trust myself to take care of myself. So I spent a good 10 years learning how to hold myself and create for myself, because I also realized if I was coming into my relationships with men, wanting them to save me on some level, I was coming in from a place of manipulation, and I was coming in from a place of not fully trusting myself. And I think there's a really interesting dance in, like, romantic relational dynamics between men and women right now of when we as women, the way of, like, the independent woman who doesn't need anything from anyone is falling away. It's not working. It's making women dried up, you know? And it's not that we as women can't create for ourselves. We can create everything for ourselves. And there's a difference between needing a man to provide for us versus being open and available to receiving a man's generosity because it feels beautiful and it feels delicious. And there's something very vulnerable that I'm experiencing in like navigating that dance, where I've spent so much time cultivating my ability to hold myself, to not contribute to like a victim savior dynamic between men and women that I think is quite pervasive in our culture, to finding this really beautiful way where it's genuinely safe for me to soften and allow myself to be supported by a man in a variety of ways without abandoning myself in the process. And I want to let men in to that particular place of vulnerability that I think a lot of women are carrying, of like wanting to open our hearts so deeply, and also wanting to make sure that we're not playing into old ways of being with men that don't serve. That's what wanted to come through. So thank you for receiving.
I loved that. Stephen, you're up.
Yeah, like I'm going to step back just a couple minutes and kind of tune into something that Jessica was talking about, and it's like this quality of like I typed this in the comments, like I'm seeing a theme here, and it's like the ability to, I think and even in our interviews, Scott, like one of the themes that's coming up over and over and over and over again was, when I bring something that's difficult to hold to the table, can I trust that you've got me? And I love the piece that Arielle keeps coming back to too, about like that inner sovereignty and the ability to hold ourselves. And like, I think that's the work. It's like being able to hold ourselves in that type of expression of energy, like our own anger, our own grief, our own sadness, our own upset and disappointment, and being able to like really at like 0.0 be like, I got you. And cultivating just like the self-parenting skills and like the inner talk, like what's circulating in our inner landscape around these parts, like really empowers us to hold other people well in that space. You know, like I think about the concept of emotional range, which is like to what degree of the deep, wide, like almost infinite emotional spectrum, like can we hold moments of like the most profound, like bucking wildly in sexual ecstasy with like roaring animalistic expressions of pleasure? Like, can we hold that level of intensity without kind of collapsing or like getting overwhelmed? And on the more difficult side, like the rage and the grief, like can we be with that too? And we can get into this place where we start to judge, particularly the more uncomfortable side of that spectrum, as bad or wrong and not something that we should have to deal with. And the more that we judge a particular feeling as bad or wrong, the more we kind of abandon our relationship to it. And so when that comes up in another person as a valid, deeply valid human experience, we can easily go into kind of suppression and judgment around it, and like minimizing behavior or going into complete avoidance and withdrawal, like the classic "come talk to me when you're normal," you know, kind of a frame. And it's like, I really love the invitation to expand our emotional range and be able to sit with a person. I like to think of as like music notes on a keyboard. It's like, can I sit with this like low note for a moment and let it play out and run its course, and then kind of come back to center? So that's kind of what Jessica's share brought up for me. And, you know, like actually another layer, like it just feels like kind of important to own, is like, Jessica's share also had me reflecting on how many times like I've had a hard time holding intensity. Like my nervous system got overwhelmed, and you know, not to pivot to a victim position in this, but like there have been moments where like the words that were coming at me were like either borderline abusive or actually like genuine abuse. And so, you know, like I also want to advocate for a quality of like, we don't have to hold everything too. And sometimes we can include healthy boundaries to, again, kind of take care of 0.0. But yeah, like I do have grief around the times where I've dropped people because I wasn't able to hold the emotion that was present. And yeah, acknowledging that that's had a harmful impact. It has a harmful impact on relationships. Has kind of been like a bit of rocket fuel for me to want to grow and transform there. Scott, I do have a video of Trish queued up, and I'd love to include her in the conversation here.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. So
Yeah.
that's and
Okay, great.
again, this is the Trish who co-hosted this show, our Friday night Straight Talk show for 2 years. And Trish sends her love. She wants people to know she will be back, but right now Friday nights are not good for her. So, but we all love Trish and look forward to showing this little clip. Take it away, Stephen.
Yeah, so just a little bit of context. So if you know Trish, you probably know her as a person who like can really bring her fire and her sass and her passion and her heat to the table. And personally, it's one of the things that I really adore and treasure about her. She has like a certain potency to the way that she speaks that's kind of piercing and penetrative. And so the video clip that I have queued up is actually based on a study that was just revealed about a month ago, and actually was shared quite virally around the internet about how men are really lonely. And one of the reasons why men are experiencing unprecedented levels of loneliness is because there is this movement of women kind of culturally, at least in North America here, and probably other places, where kind of like the standards bar is being raised a little bit and men are being called up. And so that's what this video is about. Not called out, but called up to meet that.
There's ways that dating and being a woman and being connected to men is actually just really sad sometimes. I follow a lot of men's coaches on Instagram and Facebook, and I follow a lot of women's coaches and empowerment coaches. And there's this battle that's happening, and maybe you'll talk to this as well, but there's this like kind of battle that's happening around the polarity and the duality of like being socialized as feminine and being socialized as masculine. And as much as I think that polarity is a really cool tool to use, it's a tool to use in specific moments, that the emphasis on the separateness and the dominant submissive power play that comes along with the quote unquote masculine role and the feminine role, it's actually can be really harmful. And I'll go into that a little bit so there's a couple male polarity teachers that are like, women need to submit to their men, and I don't think that women don't want to do that. I do think that they want to. I think that they want to submit or surrender into. And what's had happened is that men aren't showing up in a way that women can surrender. We're being discarded. Oh, she's too emotional. She's too much. And it's sort of these types of things. So there's a lot of women in my life who are doing their work. I mean, they're in therapy, they're in coaching programs, they have coaches, they have a therapy. Yeah, they have like, they're going to classes, they're sitting and processing with their women's groups, and they're upgrading their standards to a point where the basic male behavior that's taught in our society is actually not available anymore. And I'm sure you've seen the study. Maybe you saw that recent study that there's a lot of single men. There's ways that these types of things. So there's a lot of women in my life who are doing their work. I mean, they're in therapy and they're upgrading their standards to a point where the basic male behavior that's taught in our society is actually not available anymore. And I'm sure you've seen the study. Maybe you saw that recent study that there's a lot of single men.
Oh, I see. That's where the video ends. So actually, I have an article about that study right here, and it's quite interesting. So it points to as to why men there's like a loneliness epidemic in men. And some of it is because a lot of men are going towards dating apps to meet new people. And the study says that 62% of dating app users are men. So that's like a dramatic off balance that makes the environment highly competitive. And that's in conjunction with women becoming more selective. You know, there's 100 years ago, we needed relationships to survive. It was a necessity. It was an essential. You know, people were getting married at like 18, 19, 20 years old and having kids at 21, 22, and like raising lots of kids so that they could kind of help out on the farm too. And it was like an important survival mechanism to move swiftly into relationships. And so like the dire need to do that just isn't here anymore, at least in our culture. And so what that is doing is it's creating new kind of qualifications for what it's going to take to say yes to enter into particularly a more robust life partnership. And the article talks about how women have a tendency to have better cultivated relational skills, and men are kind of getting left in the dust a little bit. So anyways, that kind of completes the point. And I'd love to bring Arielle and Shezza back on if there's anything that came up for you around Trish talking about like the sexual polarity scene, and kind of like almost like the dogmatic narrative that men need to be like the strong dominant leader, and women need to be this beautiful, radiant, submissive kind of characterization, and kind of moving into how like a lot of women actually do want to let go and surrender and be held and led sometimes. Like just for the sheer joy of it. And it does require a man or their partner to be able to hold them in a certain way for them to feel safe enough to do that. So I'm curious about Shezza and Arielle, if you have anything to share about that.
For me, what came up in that is I also have worked with a lot of men, and that there is an incredible loneliness happening. And I'm amazed, you know, I hear people saying, last night I was at a party and they were like, yeah, the younger generation, they just really have all this, like almost, I feel like people, you know, sort of in their later 30s, 40s, they can project on this younger generation having all this great sex and like being so free. And I was like, that's actually the opposite of my experience. Is that I find that this younger generation, the people in their late teens and 20s, are the absolutely most lonely generation because they are having relationships with screens. And that also I noticed the effect of more and more people on Ritalin or Adderall or medications, plus so much screen time and this sort of like disconnected world. And that a lot of men don't actually, they're having less and less and less skills about how to show up for women. That actually some of these old, older guys who maybe, they actually have sometimes an ability to have that like old-fashioned chivalry. And I think that women still want a certain, Arielle brought that up as well, like women still want chivalrous, romantic, like attuned connection. And I just feel that also watching so much porn, it's, that the major part of the sexual education is through porn, and just the friendships and community is all online. And so it's just becoming more and more disconnected. And they say that the amount of males that are having autism, it's like skyrocketing, it's growing. And that's kind of can be a sort of euphemism or a way of saying that, men that aren't really able to relate. So yeah, I see this as an epidemic and one that we are absolutely going to have to deal with as a society.
Wow. You brought up a lot of really, really disconcerting things, and thank you for that. And it's true, we are living in a culture where people are much more familiar, comfortable with their cell phone than they are with, getting together with somebody and having a deep conversation. So it is like reestablishing things like just etiquette. And like Arielle, I loved what Arielle had said earlier about, just getting the coconut, not because I want anything other than, hey, can I share a coconut with you? So we are actually past 9 o'clock, which is usually when we end, but I want to give Arielle a chance to share one more thing. Then I want to let our audience know where they can get more of Shezza and more of Arielle. And then, of course, talk a little bit about our men's course. So Arielle, any final thoughts you'd like to share for tonight?
Yeah, well, there were two potent points brought up there that Steve was asking about. And first, I'll go into the polarity piece first of this phrase came through of like polarity doesn't work in insecure relationships. I feel like there's this way that we're wanting to play with the charge of polarity to ignite chemistry in relationship, and that's an aspect of it. But to me, I come from the standpoint of I am a woman embodied in masculine and feminine energy. I choose partnership with a man who's embodied in masculine and feminine polarity. My desire is for both of us to have the full range of our masculine and feminine polarity available in the relationship, because that's the fullness of our humanity. And I want all of me to be there. I want all of my man to be able to be there. And that invites me to cultivate mastery on the full spectrum, just as he. So I'm a fan of polarity integration within the self, as opposed to the woman is the sub, the man is the dom, and that's the dynamic that we're creating. That's an aspect of it, but not if it's in place of just the simple and profound experience of learning to unguard the human heart and just genuinely love each other, which let's just start there. Let's start with where have I learned to live with walls around my heart because I'm afraid that it's not safe to be who I truly am. And let's just get to that place of learning to trust ourselves enough to reveal ourselves and also trust our discernment and who we're inviting into these sacred spaces. And the other piece that I want to add is just, I often bite my tongue with this conversation of like where men are at in their growth and evolution as opposed to women, because I'm not interested in getting lumped into the category of saying, oh, she's just hating on men. That if I say, it's like, I will be transparent that in the past couple of years, there has been feelings of disappointment and, more than anything else, a desire for more. And I want to feel like my desire for more is not going to be lumped into the category of me being a woman who will never have enough from a man. I've held back my truth because I don't want to be lumped into the resentful, never enough woman category. But I'm not interested in being a coddler either, because I don't think protecting men from our feelings serves anyone. And it's only been through me choosing to not coddle that I've actually been available for the type of connection that I desire. So I think the final piece I would leave with is like, men, like, we love you so fucking much. You drive us crazy and we love the fuck out of you. And we're just trying to figure out how to be connected with you. Like, please stay connected to us. We're doing our best.
Likewise. Thank you. And you drive us crazy too. Just
Good.
gotta acknowledge that. And we also, that's why we're having this thing. We want. And how the heck can I learn how to give that to you fast enough? Hey, before you go, Arielle, I have put your information in the chat box, but I want to just have you share with people a little bit about some of the amazing things that you're doing. And for those watching on Facebook, her website is ariellebrown.com. So it's pretty easy, ariellebrown.com, her name. But then if you go / to Erotic Integration Mastermind. Now, first of all, everybody, make sure you register so you can find out all about the art of having what you want, right? Tell us about that and tell us about your sovereignty program.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend, yes, if you're interested in coming into a deeper relationship with the power of your authentic desire, highly recommend signing up for my my mailing list. You'll receive a 4-part video series there. And so beginning on November 2nd, I am holding a 12-week, what I'm calling Erotic Integration Mastermind for medicine women on the priestess path, serving as guides, facilitators, and community leaders. More and more what I'm seeing as women are rising and embodying in positions of leadership, especially in spiritual communities and especially in communities that prioritize the intentional use of plant medicines, psychedelics, things of that nature. The level of work that we have done around our own integration as human beings and also as sexual beings is going to impact the type of space that we can hold and facilitate for the healing of others. A significant aspect of the focus of my work is looking at how when we aren't prioritizing the healing and integration of our sexuality, it impacts our ability to lead authentically, transparently, vulnerably, and as a safe, embodied space. So this 12-week Erotic Integration Mastermind is specifically for women who are serving in positions of leadership or facilitation in these communities and one-on-one work that's focused on healing and consciousness expansion, to do that deeper integration work around who we are as sexual beings so that we can trust ourselves to hold these deeply nuanced and potent spaces where desire, attraction, and sexual energy very naturally emerges. It's very nuanced work. I'm limiting it to 9 women for this first cohort. And there's an application process involved because I really want to invite the aligned women into this first potent container.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I've said this to you before, but I so appreciate how eloquent you are. You really have a real talent for expressing complex ideas with a lot of eloquence. And it's always, whenever I'm talking to you, it's like, I want to talk to you more.
Yay.
So let's do that for sure.
I love that.
Thank you so much, Arielle. Thank you. And you can also find her on RelationFlix. Arielle is one of the great coaches that you'll find on RelationFlix. And I'm going to bring on our RelationFlix master, Stephen, so he can wax poetic about you. And then we'll go to Shezza for her conclusion.
Yeah, I got to give Arielle a shout out. Her video series on RelationFlix on exploring women's pleasure is holding steady as the top viewed content on the entire platform. So tip of the hat to you, Arielle, there. And for those of you that don't know, RelationFlix is a video subscription service platform that myself and a bunch of really brilliant relationship experts, sex educators, coaches, therapists have been working really hard on to bring just, world-class relationship education shot by professional filmmakers and delivered for a palatable subscription cost. So relationflix.com is where you can go check that out. And there's a free 30-day trial for you to check it out to see if it's a good fit for you.
And look at who they've got. They've got all these amazing educators. Obviously, you've heard from several of them today. There's Jessica, of course, Shezza, of course, Arielle, Emily, Erikaa, Paul Sterling, Michael Dyer, myself, Trish, Stephen, Philippe. I think every one of these people practically has been on The Awakening World. They're all amazing people. So Relation Flicks is amazing. Shezza, I'm bringing you up. Tell us what are your offerings at this time? How do people get more Shezza?
Well, you can go to my website, sheryl.com, or find me on Facebook. Shezza Sheryl is also a great way. I have an upcoming retreat here on the Big Island. It is Joygasm. It's an energy healing and embodied pleasure, self-mastery, and practitioner training. So we're going to be here. We're going to be working with energy and using that energy for pleasure and healing and soul level transformation. You can also, I'm also going to be doing, so you can do the retreat in Hawaii. I'm also leading and the retreat is 27th of November to the 3rd of December. And you can also do that series online. And yeah, it's going to be a beautiful 7-week series. I have it all written out, and it's going to be absolutely amazing helping people. You can do it for yourself, but also it will be techniques you can use with clients in terms of using energy, our sexual energy. And it's really about multi-dimensional energy orgasm. I am officially an energy orgasm practitioner, but I'm taking all my knowledge from being a therapist for 20 years and putting it all together in these energy orgasm sessions that are really unique. No one's ever done this before. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of clients here on the Big Island. It's going really well. My sessions are amazing. And I am just until the end of the year offering one-off sessions. So if people want to have a one-off session, once I get into at least by February 2023, you only ever going to be able to get work with me in a longer package. So I am just doing this for the time being.
Beautiful. And I just got to go to your website. This is the shezzasheryl.com. I love that photo of you. And I also love, you do embrace eco-sexuality. You embrace your body in beautiful ways. And I know that you really help other people, men and women, to embrace themselves, to love themselves, to be joyful like that amazing woman having an eco-sexual experience on the rocks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. And you'll see Shezza and Arielle hopefully on the show again soon because they're both really, really awesome. We are going to close in a moment with Omashar music, but we do want to encourage people to take our course. Now, of course, I recognize that a lot of the people on the show are women, but that's all right. Tell your men, get those trainable men to join our course, Relationship Essentials for the Evolving Masculine, which I'll be teaching with Stephen. It's on Thursday nights, 6:00 Pacific time, starting October 20th. And Stephen, what do you want to make sure that people know about our course?
Yeah, I keep looking at the itinerary for our course and just being like, where was this when I started my journey? It's like I just keep looking at it, like all the different subjects that we're going to uncover, like dating in a post Me Too world. Like, how can we show up in our passion and our desire and our sexual potency in a way that is like deeply contained and like inclusive of other people's boundaries, and how our sexual potency impacts them, and like able to navigate those waters with skill and mastery in a way where we do give ourselves permission to own our desire and actually be and cultivate and expand our sexual potency, acknowledging that it's a huge gift that we can give someone. and bring to the table, and how to do that in a way that's like deeply attuned to other people, so that we don't have to worry about being seen as creepy or a predator, and we can kind of keep a finger on the pulse of how our energy is being responded and held by the other person, and like caring and considering for that deeply. Tantric sexuality skills, lovemaking skills, ejaculation retention skills for beautiful multi-orgasmic lovemaking, attachment theory and creating secure relationships, managing our own shame around being men that we carry, our inadequacy wound, emotional intelligence and communication and conflict resolution skills. Like it's such a gorgeous program. I'm super excited to be co-piloting it with you, Scott.
Likewise, Stephen. So everybody, I'm putting in the link where you can register for it, and please do join Stephen and I. And for those of you who've been asking, again, everybody who has registered, so if you're in the Zoom room, you've registered for the Awakening World, our new season that officially starts tomorrow. And I'm gifting all of you with my relationship satsang class tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and that is co-ed. And I will be sending out an email to all the Awakening World registrants, and I'll send that out tonight, so you'll have it by tomorrow morning. Stephen, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And, you know, Omashar is the alpha and omega of our shows. It all begins with him, and it all kind of tends to end with him.
It does.
Omashar, I know you wrote you've got a new song for us that you played at the beginning. You got another new song for us.
Well, it's another song that I haven't played yet, and it's called Until You. And the reason I brought it up is because I was brought up a real anal retentive Brit with no relationship skills whatsoever passed on by my family. And it wasn't until I actually started relating, it took me, let's say, at least 15 years to become educational. And I met this woman once, and she would take no rubbish from me whatsoever. And I loved her so much that I ended up melting. And there's one line in this song which says, "I wasn't always this real until you." And so this song is called Until You, and it was written out of that experience of getting a reflection so clear that it shocked off a lot of my British masculine inability to have my heart wide open and be fully available for a partner, a woman in my in this case. And so here we are. This is this one, Until You.
Without you in my life, it would seem so unreal. I'm glad it's not true. What could I ever feel if you left me alone? I'm so happy you're here, that you came through. I am one love with you. You're part of my life. Don't think that I'm crazy, 'cause I feel so alive in this new situation. I am never alone. You gave me your heart, and now I call it my home. Show me a better way to get on with my life. constant change that we need for our souls. There is always a way for us to get through. I am one love with you. You're part of my life. Don't think that I'm crazy, 'cause I feel so alive in this new situation. I am never alone. You gave me your heart, and now I call it my home. Don't think that I'm crazy, 'cause I feel so alive in this new situation. I am never alone. You gave me your heart, and now I call it my home.
Beautiful, Omashar. Thank you so much. And thank you, Eleanor Joy. We
I
spotted.
know, Eleanor, that was awesome, sweetheart. In your orange.
That's right. She's wearing the orange we were talking about. There. Yeah, I'll put the spotlight on her. Hang on. There she is in her beautiful orange.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a Victoria, British Columbia time because she's in Victoria and so is our beloved Stephen. So all hail Victoria, British Columbia. And also Waterfall was there too. So Omashar, thank you so much.
pleasure.
Beautiful two songs. I love your songs tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Stephen, any last thoughts you want to share? I know your beloved is there, and thank you for staying a little bit longer. Any last thoughts you want to share tonight?
I feel expressed and complete. Yeah, thank you, Scott.
Well, thank you so much for pulling everything together. My internet went out, and I drove over to a friend's studio, and Stephen had to pull a lot together tonight. So thank you for doing that, partner. So thank you, Stephen, and thank you, everybody. And a reminder, we are kicking off the first, October 1st is the Awakening World News season, begins tomorrow night. We've got some great presenters, people you've not seen before, River and Diamond, who created the Freedom Technique. They're amazing. And we're bringing back your favorite magician, Sean Jay. We're going to be honoring Purpose Earth, Tatiana Speed, and Omashar providing music tomorrow night. So it's going to be a wonderful show. Do join us, 6 o'clock Pacific time. And thank you, everybody. And remember to share our shows and our projects with your friends. Let's get a lot of people into the men's course. We need it. Take care, everybody. Have a beautiful evening and God's blessings. I'm going to go to gallery view, as I always do at the end. So turn on your cameras, wave goodbye. And thank you so much for being with us. Good night, everybody.